Hello, and welcome to the Health Oddity Podcast, episode number 147. I've been reliably informed because I never know which one it is because it's usually James who does the introduction, isn't it? But, you know, I took over this week, put my foot down with a firm hand. So anyway, we've got a cracking guest this week. I'm so excited about this. This guy's been all over my Facebook feed for years, and it's just been a landslide recently, but in a good way. It's been great. But anyway, we'll get to that in a moment. But first, let's introduce our two regular hosts. First, let's go to James. Why not? Because James never gets to do his introduction for himself and everything, does he? How are you doing, James? You all right?
Yeah, I'm very good, thank you. Yeah, we had a good weekend just gone with the Unique Results walking weekend. So been in the Chilterns near High Wycombe and Oxfordshire and things, and had a couple of good days walking with some members, and the sunshine was out, and there was some lovely country pubs that you would have appreciated and enjoyed. And yeah, it was a fabulous weekend. And then just back to the gym and obviously looking forward to this today, because I've also been seeing this guy and following this guy for a long time. So looking forward to today's episode.
Excellent. Nice one. How about you, Paul? How are you doing?
Wearing the Health Oddity t-shirt. For those of you who can't see what I'm doing, I'm just wearing a t-shirt that's been in the tumble dryer a few too many times.
Is it the tumble dryer that does it? Is it? I thought you were boiling it every time you washed it or something.
Well, probably.
Doing it on like a massive pot on the cooker, like with your pants in that, like Uncle Albert on. Yeah,
yeah. I'm out on the riverbanks whacking it into stones, to dry it off. But I'm the only one without a beard today.
You are.
Yeah, you are. Yeah. That's all right though.
It's okay.
That's all right. Actually.
You've got a picture of a T-Rex behind you, so we'll let you off.
Yeah,
that's all right. You can cope with that. That's cool. But yeah, actually, so let's get to this, because this is interesting, because this is the second time within the last 3 weeks. Because I even said this a couple of weeks ago when we had what's his name, Chris on, and he had hair and a beard as well, and I was like, wow, we're representing well, because obviously we've got two bald guys, and I'm the only one who's got the full package. But not again, not today, and we've gone even better today. So, if you've heard the term Flong Sexible, I had to look that up because I was going to say it the wrong way around. Flong Sexible, you'll know who this guy is. If you've got Facebook, you'll probably know who this guy is anyway, because he's everywhere, and it's fantastic. So today we've got Mr. Tom Morrison. How are you doing, Tom?
I'm pretty good. I'm Flong Sexible.
You're Flong Sexible. You certainly are. It's fantastic. Excellent. So, for people who haven't seen you and don't know who you are, what we usually do at the start of these sorts of things will be kind of like, just get a bit of background, sort of how you got into what you're doing. Because I've seen some of the stuff where you were saying, there's what you've got so many videos and pictures out there. It's amazing. I love it. The one about Instagram with, anterior pelvic tilt is this many follows and posterior pelvic tilt is this many. And then the one where if you stand like this, you'll end up looking like this, and you've got like one leg much shorter than the other. I'm sure that's photoshopped, but there you go. But all those sorts of things. So obviously, you've obviously had a journey of having to learn about all this stuff from your own experience by the looks of it. So if we just start from where that all came from, if that's okay, and then we'll open up the conversation further.
Okay. Well, I was born in Aberdeen. No, whenever I was younger, I didn't have any interest in training at all, or sports or anything like that. All I wanted to do was play heavy metal music, be in a band, drink and smoke. That was me. And then at 25, all of my friends started calling me Beef. And I worked in a betting office at the time, so it was a really, really slim office, and they couldn't get past me because I put on so much weight, and they just started poking fun at me, as friends do. Good friends, the best friends you have, they'll poke fun at you.
Absolutely.
So that encouraged me to be like, right, well, I'm going to lose weight then. And I decided to try martial arts as a first thing to go for. Well, after I tried sitting on an exercise bike for a while, I was like, this does not work for me. I want to actually do something that's interesting. So I went and I started in a martial arts gym, and I was like, this is amazing. And like within the course of a year, changed my hobbies, my lifestyle, everything, so much, because I just found this new passion and this new lease on life. It was like, I want to be good at sparring. I want to be in the advanced classes. I want to be able to do the cool stuff. I want to, and I just got so excited about it. And I got away with things for about a year. There was like warning signs, and it was like I couldn't do some of the movements. So if you've ever done MMA, there's a move that's called like the triangle choke, where you have to wrap your leg around someone else's neck and then clamp it down and stuff. I just couldn't do it, and I thought, that's a stupid exercise. I didn't realize there was a reason for it, which was that my hip mobility was so poor at the time. And whenever everyone in the class was doing squats and stuff, I was barely getting anywhere near to a parallel depth of a squat, and there was just so many little things that I just couldn't do. And I just never really thought anything of it. But anytime I was exercising, it was like my lower back always hurt, my knees always hurt. And I just thought that's the way people feel, because you don't know how everybody else feels when they're doing stuff. You're just like, that must be normal. And yeah, it's why we're a big proponent of telling people that is not normal. You should not feel like that. So yeah, after that first year, like I lost loads of weight, looked great, but I was in so much pain, and I just kept tweaking things all the time. My knee, my neck, my elbow, my shoulder, and just all these things just kept happening. And I ended up tearing meniscus in my knee, and I ended up walking with a limp for about a year because it took me so long to get it seen to. So then my hips started to shift as well. So I had poor flexibility in my hips, and they had shifted as well. And then I just kept cracking on, and I started being like, right, okay, I'll sort my flexibility out then. So I went down the foam rolling path and the attaching resistance bands to yourself and stuff, and doing all the weird S and M stuff. And yeah, it did start to increase my flexibility. I was starting to actually get the squat lower and stuff, but then my problems just started getting worse. And then I ended up injuring my back really quite badly. And I got an L4, L5 disc protrusion and an L5, S1 disc extrusion, which impinges on the nerve root as well. So like just intense searing pain down my leg. And I was like, basically couldn't walk. I couldn't get up in the mornings. I was just in absolute agony. I was like, okay, maybe I've done something wrong here. And I had a great physio at the time. So I was going to physio. I was going to my physio like twice a week at one point, just all the time, just because I always needed things fixed, because I was always annoying things. And I just classified that as somebody else's job. Somebody else is supposed to fix that stuff, not yourself. And yeah, so I just got to a point where I was just so broken. It was like, okay, I can't train anymore at all. So I then went on this period for a year of learning how to fix my flexibility properly, and learning about my stability and the differences from side to side that I had. And I was just an absolute mess. There's so many people I meet now that are like, oh, you've never seen anyone like me before. And still to this day, I'm still like, you've no idea how bad I was. And yeah, so over the course of a year, I ended up fixing myself completely, and I moved so much better. I was doing some of the mad stuff that you maybe see me doing, all the handstand stuff, and doing workouts of like I would do like 5 CrossFit workouts back to back, with like the heavy ones with the hard gymnastics movements. I would do them back to back for fun, and my recovery felt amazing. And I made so much progress in the course of like a 6-month period compared to like a 2-year period beforehand, and just because I moved better. And then I finally got my letter to get my MRI scan for my back. And at that time, I believed that the disc that had slipped must have went back in or whatever. That's what I believed. And I went and got the MRI scan, and I got the report, and it still showed the structural damage that I have. And I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Why am I being told by doctors not to move now and change my career and all this stuff? And I was like, so I started to delve more into that, and I just realized all over the world, there's so many people in that same way. Like they maybe hurt themselves when they're, in their late 20s, early 30s. And then you meet them at 50 and they haven't done anything for 20 years because they were told not to once. And it's like, that's a big deal. People that haven't played with their children because of pain, like it's a big thing. So we're very passionate about getting people to realize that a lot of stuff is fixable, and a lot of diagnoses that you can get and syndromes you can be labeled with and stuff are absolutely changeable through movement. And it doesn't have to be complicated. It's just consistency. So that's kind of what led us to doing what we do.
That's really interesting. We had Stuart McGill on a couple of years ago, and he was talking about like sort of back mechanics and stuff like that. But he gets to see people who've already hurt themselves, doesn't he? So everything he sees is people who've got a bad back. But I think that's interesting that the structural damage is still there, but the pain is gone, and you can do more than you were ever able to do beforehand anyway, because of getting that mobility in.
I have
So
muscle atrophy of my left glute. So my left glute is visibly smaller than my right glute, and I can't change that. I can't fix that because of the nerve impingement. But never get any pain, and I can still balance on it, and it doesn't give me any issues.
okay, that's excellent. So I mean, you've your SMM product, the simple mobility method. How long has it taken you to develop that? Was that because obviously it sounds like you've worked on it on yourself, and then kind of just said, right, how can I start to because one of the things about this stuff is it's really hard to make it accessible to everybody, isn't it? Because you're like, well, here's what I did, so just do that, and it's like, yeah, but I haven't got the same issues, or the same pain in the same places. But I suppose it's like the same. You can still do the same stuff for all your joints to get them into to get your organism working together. So how long has it taken you to put that together? Because obviously you started out when you were in your 20s. So how long has it taken to put that together?
Well, that was over the course of a year, and working, because I was coaching at the time, so I was working with other people, and I was just realizing that other people already had these problems that I had as well. They just hadn't got hurt yet. And because we worked with people for like a 5-year period at a time, you'd get to see just over the period of a year, someone going, hey, they had that hip problem I had. Oh, now their knees sore. Oh, I'm shocked. It just kind of went that way. And I just started to notice all these patterns with people. And the way I kind of went was like, what would I have wanted if I could have went back in time when I was at my worst to just be like, do this, shut up, do this. This is it. Just do this. And that's what I wanted to create. And when you really it's called the simplistic mobility method. And it is literally just 15 exercises. You do them in order. You do not change the order, and you stick to it, and you be consistent with it. And you will make a lot of changes with stuff. And if you read through our reviews and stuff, you'll see people like, it fixed my knee, it fixed my hip, it fixed my back, it fixed my upper back, it fixed my neck, it fixed my elbow tendonitis, all these different things. And it's all from the same movements. And the way I kind of worked with it was like, okay, these are the things that I really, really struggled with. What are those principles of movement then? What was it that was my problem? And for me, my right hip was severely lacking external hip rotation, and it was like internally rotated. So my right knee actually pointed towards my left knee. My left knee was straight. This was never picked up by anybody that I went to. And like, I spent thousands on treatments and stuff, and I had no stability in that right side either. My right shoulder was a lot more mobile than my left shoulder. There was just all these little things. So I was like, well, hang on, if I had known to check all of those things and compare the left and rights, I would have picked them things up. So I know which exercises now to use to put into a program to give people to be like, do you know you have these differences? Because you can get away with stuff for a long time. You can get strong wrong for a long time until you don't. And then it's all of a sudden, oh, I need to fix that one thing. And it's like, you 10 things that you need to actually work on, So that's the way I kind of designed the program. And then I made the realization that it was so important that if you're going to stretch something, you must integrate it straight away with a strength movement as well. Otherwise, you'll turn into one of those people that feel like they have to stretch all the time. And you're bound to meet them with your own clients and stuff as well. It's like, my hip flexors are so tight and they're always stretching their hip flexors all the time. And it's like, if you took away the amount of stretching you're doing and just added a little bit of strength work with the stretching, it would stick then, and you wouldn't feel like you needed to do it as often, and you just move better all the time. So I was just trying to make it so accessible to people that they felt like they could do it, because it feels like a big job. But like I said, at the end of the day, it's just like, do 15 exercises, do them in order, don't mess it up, stick to it. Anybody can do that, and it's just knowing those differences between left and right that you're actually able to catch your own imbalances. So people always ask for me for a tailored program, and I'm like, why do you have some kind of special shoulders and joints compared to other people? It just doesn't make it any different. Everybody has the same stuff, so the same stuff works for everybody.
I remember Mark Rifkind. I was at a certification that he was teaching at, and he said something similar of, it's kind of like being a mechanic and everyone brings the same car. So you just go, well, I know all the, so you're just basically working on the same car over and over and over and over and over again. Yeah. I think that's brilliant. Yeah, because everyone thinks their own pain is individual, don't they? And it's interesting what you've just said there, because James, you had problems with your back, didn't you? And you were doing foam rolling and stretching and all this sort of stuff, and you just stopped doing it all, didn't you? Well, you can tell us.
Yeah, I mean, I was going through, for a long time. I had this. This is interesting because we've had a number of people on from different kind of backgrounds and who approach this from slightly different perspectives, maybe. But I think when you have pain and you have lived with it for a long time, you almost accept that pain, obviously. And I was consistently foam rolling and stretching and over mobilizing without the strengthening component. And I think I was just, I was exacerbating the problem, and I was loose and weak, so that's probably the opposite of Flong and Sexible, I was kind of loose and weak. And then once I started, actually, let's strengthen this. Let's really just work on strength through a full range of motion. Everything's kind of knitted together. And Dan John, we mentioned before coming on, Dan John sort of says, fit comes from the word knit, to knit everything together, and for things to be, in the right place, and to be tight where you need to be tight and loose where you need to be loose. And I think that's kind of what I did, and it all went away, over a period of time, not overnight, obviously. I was just going to ask, Tom, when you said you're in your 20s, you were working in a betting shop, you'd never done any exercise or sport and things like that, and then you kind of mentioned that obviously you went into martial arts training and you went down this route yourself of kind of discovery. And then you obviously started working with other people within, fitness or mobility, or to what kind of extent. How did that kind of transition? How did you decide, or why did you decide, or when did you decide, actually, I want to do this as, I want to make this my living in the way that I make money, and I want to become a professional and do this with other people and not just fix myself?
It was actually the people that were coaching me. I was so passionate about training myself that I was like, this is great, this is brilliant. And then like any group classes that we did and stuff, I was kind of, noticeably cheering other people on and, trying to give people tips and helping them out and stuff. It was just something that was just within me to try and do. And I was just asked to help to be an assistant coach for martial arts, and then eventually asked to be a coach for the CrossFit side that I was on as well. And it just built from there, really. It was never a career path or idea of mine to even have something like that. It was just kind of like, oh, this makes sense. And then I just kind of started to get good at what I was doing. And, word of mouth was kind of the thing. So like way before I used any kind of internet advertising or anything like that, there was just people coming in going, here, Jim said you helped my mate Tim, and blah, 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 blah. And it just rolled off the back of that. And then eventually it just got to the, like, exactly like you said about analogy about people being cars. I got to a point where I was like, I don't even need to be here to teach people this stuff. I could just, if I teach it really well on a course, I could just have that online and people could do it themselves, take themselves through it. And the same thing started to happen online as well. So it was the exact same stuff I was using in person with people. They were just doing it online. And then the same thing, they were like, this program's great, this is amazing. And the word of mouth spread. And then it was like, oh, here, this has actually become a business. So me and Jenny always joke. So Jenny was training in the gym whenever I first met her. And she has all the computer smarts, like absolutely everything. She built the website. She just does anything that requires anything to be online. She does it. I am a complete dinosaur with technology. And it was just like, it just made sense eventually for like me and her to just, right, okay, let's be business partners here and actually make something out of this. And yeah, so we always joke, like we accidentally started a business. That's how it came about. And it was just through the biggest thing that people always ask is like, how do you do what you do and stuff? Is just get really good at what you do first, and it'll, work. You can't just have a great business. You got to be really good at something first and build a business off that, rather than, starting just, oh, I'm going to be the best. You've got to hone your craft kind of thing. And through getting hurt and not starting until I was so much older, so me not starting exercising until I was 25, I really know what it's like to not know how to move at all, so it helps me relate a lot to people.
You took a slightly different angle though when you're trying to put flexibility in front of people, because most of the time when you see kind of flexibility adverts and different businesses, they're either more the kind of holistic kind of Pilates, yoga kind of approach, the serene side of things, or there's a gymnastic element, but you really kind of pulled in your kind of humor to kind of target people. I mean, what made you kind of go down that avenue? What was working about that made you think, okay, let's really focus on that?
Well, a lot of the stuff that we teach is so boring, and it's like, it really doesn't have to be. I used to sit through podcasts that, were like well over 2 hours long and stuff, just hoping to catch a wee glimmer of 5 minutes that were useful and stuff. And I was like, why is this so hard to get this information? And I was like on the internet looking for studies of things and all, and just like I would have spent hours and hours and hours just to get this information. That was my passion. But for other people, it's not like that. They're like, I'm sore and I can't be bothered with it. they don't want to spend hours online and, looking at these things. They want to be like, hey, here's what can really help you now. And if we can just give them, so something for us, just to give them something so accessible that they almost would feel silly not to try it. It's like, hey, put your leg up in your stairs and have a bit of a wiggle, and we're not going to call it proprioceptive, PNF stretching or, contract, relax and all that there stuff. We're not going to use any of those terms. It's like literally leg up in the stairs, have a wee wiggle, see how it feels. And then when someone that hasn't done that for maybe 5 or 10 years or ever does that, they are like, hey, my hip feels a little better. What else do you do? And they'll it's kind of like a gateway joke. So we always joke about that, just getting people started that wee bit. And it's just the whole silliness idea is to just make normal people that don't really care about fitness actually want to give it a go. And then what you'll find whenever you help someone to move better is they'll be like, all right, I'm going to give maybe this fitness thing a go and actually join a gym and actually, go from there. So I just got way more passionate about helping, because I was training weightlifters and stuff and, helping people hit PRs and do competitions and all this stuff. And I was like, yeah, I don't really care if I don't see any deadlift PRs anymore. It doesn't really excite me. But see, when I see someone who doesn't care about their own physical fitness or how they feel actually go, oh, hang on, I can make myself feel better. It's like that fires me up. That's like, yes, you can. And, and from where I was being in so much pain and not being able to walk and everything, like for me, just knowing how you can feel in that, in that bad way, it's like my life is so much better now for me doing what I did. And I just want to help other people get there too.
You want to be careful with that, because you might turn gyms into fun places to be.
I know, right? Can't be having that.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
I'm not like talking about, like Paul and I haven't got a gym, but Paul and James's place are obviously, fun. I've been to James's one. It's a great place.
We enforce fun. You have to smile in my gym. You're not allowed to have a sad face.
Yeah, organized fun.
Yeah.
I was going to say, Tom, what I think is really there was obviously body coach Joe Wicks, when he first kind of came out on online a number of years ago, and obviously he kind of hit really big through the pandemic and get involved in kind of PE for kids and all that kind of thing. You've kind of, and the thing that I think a lot of established kind of, if people call themselves fitness professionals or, personal trainers, whatever, get very snobby about certain things, don't they? And he got a lot of flack, and people just, and I think it's people like to just tear down other people who are doing well. But he was so accessible and made everything so accessible. And I think that, and obviously he built his platform largely online. And with what you're doing now as well, I do see some, because I saw I was reading some of your comments the other day where you do get a few people who kind of say, oh, this guy is a bit of a clown, or he's just, I don't like the way he's kind of being silly. And but like you said, if you don't have the knowledge and if you're not good at what you do and the content you're putting out isn't good, then you are just a clown. But you've got the kind of, you're making it accessible. And I think, people either like that, like your delivery of the message, or they don't. And obviously plenty of people do, because like you said, you've sold, like, I think you said 25,000 kind of SMM, packages, if you like. So lots of people do get drawn to your message. And I think that you know who you're talking to as well, don't you? You are talking to the everyday person who was like you when you were 25 or 30 or 35, and they're not kind of gym goers at the moment for most of them. But do you find that, do a lot of people, you mentioned CrossFit as well, people who are more serious about their training and their exercise come to you for their kind of mobility education as well? Or are you mainly kind of aimed at the people who are new to exercise? Would you get across, if you see what I mean?
The majority would be the average person, which I class myself as, even, anything that I can do that looks kind of impressive. When I get in the room with the people that actually do that as their thing, I am nowhere near them, but it's the average person is the main people that we would help. But we do have a lot of like more high-end athletes and powerlifters and CrossFitters and stuff that do ask us for advice. There's a lot of strongmen as well, actually. And even people that would be really good yoga practitioners and stuff, just for my take on certain things, because I'm very good at figuring out the gaps in a training method, and everything has gaps in some sort of way. And that was what I was always after. It was like, right, okay, what is Flong and Sexible? It's the right combination of strong and flexible. That's what it is. So it's making sure you have enough strength, enough flexibility, so you can go and do back bends and the splits if you want to, or you can go and deadlift a world record if you want to. You got to have the Flong and Sexible first. And if you want, that can just be enough for you as well. You don't need to pursue, you know, a world record or a massive, you know, run 5K PR time or whatever. You don't have to do that if you don't want to, but you still want to be Flong and Sexible. You still want to have enough to feel strong and not like you're gonna snap if you bend too fast or something like that. So yeah, we do work with anybody and everybody really, and a lot of coaches and stuff as well. So like predominantly people at our seminars would have a lot of physios and chiropractors and strength coaches and stuff would come to our seminars as well as regular people too. So we work with absolutely everyone, and we're excited to work with other people too. So I love to talk to other professionals and get their insights and things as well, because it helps my knowledge too. So the more people I've worked with over the years and seeing how they do things, it's just expanding my knowledge. So, you know, there's no reason not to communicate with anybody, I don't think.
Yeah. And with your sort of content creation, because that's kind of, we've had a number of people on before. We had Mark Lewis on a little while ago, who's kind of a YouTuber who's kind of exploded really with what he does. And he kind of, I'm just wondering, the imagination that goes into your kind of content that you create, do you sit down? Is this just stuff that the way you present, like you say, it's 15 movements or 15 stages, but the way that you kind of put your infomercials and things out there, does this just come to you and you have an idea? Or do you sit down and kind of talk it through with Jenny? Or is this just, you know, is it just your creative kind of side coming out and then you think, I've got an idea? Because I watched the one in Barcelona as well that you did, I think, and you mentioned just before we came on, when you're kind of just walking along and, you know, picking people up and moving them on benches, and you had the I can't remember, the Gaudi Cathedral behind you, and
yeah,
it was fantastic. You know, I mean, do these things just come to you and you think, I've got a good idea, we're just going to do this? Or
there's like a 50-50 of that. So me and Jenny, we meet every Tuesday, and that would be like our ideas session where we try and come up with ideas as well. And then the other times is like if I go for a walk or something, maybe halfway around, I'd be like, "Ooh," and I'll just whip my phone out and write an entire script in one go, like the Office advert and the Battle of Flong one, if you've seen that one as well. It was just like I write when I come up with the idea, it's out of me in 5 minutes, and it's like ready to be tweaked. But like I would need to, like I said, go for that walk, you know, and it maybe takes me 45 minutes of the hour walk to be like, oh, I have an idea. Or sometimes it's like a 3 a.m. thing as well, you know, I'm like, oh, that would be really funny. And then I can't sleep the rest of the night because I'm so excited about it, which is annoying.
Honestly, we should have a little bit at the end of this. Which is your favorite Tom Morrison video? Because it's like watching through old episodes or something, and you've always got your favorite bits. Because I remember the one of you in the room. And I think Jenny knocks on the door because you're making all these funny noises. It's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm watching dirty movies while you're you're doing foam rolling. And
yeah, don't let anyone know I'm using a roller.
It's absolutely brilliant.
Oh, it's gone silent.
How's that? That never happened.
No, so Tom, with your SMM, so people just, like you say, it's not a monthly subscription, is it? People just sign up to it and get it. Because Nikki, who works with me at the gym, she's got the SMM program, and I told her that you were on today, and she was really excited that we were coming on and talking to you.
Awesome.
Do you also? You mentioned workshops and things as well for other trainers. How many of those do you do, like live kind of workshops or seminars? Is that something that's kind of a regular part of your year? Do you do those regularly, or is that kind of a bit ad hoc?
It was before COVID, and then after lockdowns and stuff, we kind of just got out of the swing of it. And then like the first one we came back to do, it was like 5 people came to it, and I was like, oh no, nobody comes to seminars anymore. What's going on? You know, because it was straight after the lockdowns, and it was like, maybe these aren't a great idea. So we haven't really got back into the swing of it and doing them as often now, but we're going to now because we've got JP now helping us out with a lot of the stuff, the back end stuff. So it takes a lot of workload off myself and Jenny doing everything all the time. So we're going to have more time to be able to organize more seminars and stuff like that. Because it is great to meet people. Like I really do miss working with people in person, because I used to take every class every day, like at 6 a.m. and then I would take the 10 a.m. and then I would take the 5, 6, and 7 p.m. classes and stuff. I used to work with people all the time, and now just being online, it's like, it's a bit lonely, it's a bit weird. So I would do in-person sessions once a month now, and then get into the seminars and getting to meet people that like you get to talk to online and from the group and stuff, you know, come to the seminar. It's so much fun as well. And just by the way our brand is, and that it is friendly and it is fun and stuff, the people that we attract are always really fun and great to get on with as well. So Pretty cool.
That's the thing. Sorry, I was just saying, I suppose you put the energy out there and you attract your tribe, don't you? And like we said, there are maybe a few. At the end of the day, if you put yourself out there online, and you sort of stick your head up, there are going to be a few people who are going to knock you down or not like what you do. And Pete, we've spoke about this before, haven't we? About
I get loads of it for some reason. I don't know why.
Pete gets loads of it, but on the flip side, there was I remember someone years and years ago said to me, if how you present and what you do isn't strong enough to put off the people who you don't want, it won't be strong enough to attract the people that you do want. So it's nice that you detract the people you put off the people who aren't your people when you attract the people who are. So when you do turn up and do workshops and people sign up, that they're buying into you, aren't they? They like what you do, they like how you present, and they buy into you, which is fantastic. Sorry, Paul, I cut you off.
I was just going to go back to a point about the difference between being in person and online. One of the things actually is we were discussing it with my team this morning. We have a client and he really struggles with awareness of his posterior tilt and his low back. So, trying to get him into a plank, trying to get him into any kind of position which requires a posterior tilt, he really struggles with. And we were talking about, we've just got to find the right cue. We've just got to find the right language that taps into him. So, because there's that, when you're in person, within reason, you can you can either demonstrate on your own body and say, look, I'm doing this, or depending on your kind of, you can tilt someone's shoulders in the right position. You can kind of do some manual adjustment. How have you evolved your language since starting the program? Because obviously you've had these ideas, you came up with the structure, and then you're like, well, there must be an optimization process that you've gone through over the years about trying to communicate that, because that they won't have you in the room, and you've got to hope that cue that you've given them is going to be interpreted a bit like Chinese whispers. It's like I talk to my 4-year-old and I say he's got a 4-year-old processing unit, because I'll say something and he'll cut and it will process through his brain and come out the other end something mad. And it's surprising how people will process cues and information. So how have you kind of evolved over the years to adapt your language to get the best possible result from people you can't actually see?
One of the big ones is when I'm using verbal cues and stuff, like I will touch the muscle that I want them to feel. And I won't, even hamstrings, I won't even say hamstrings. I'll be like, you want to make sure you feel in the back of your leg. And that's, everybody knows what the back of their leg is. And if you rub it at the same time, it's like, okay, so they don't need to know, even if it is just hamstrings or whatever, you point out where you want them to feel, because it is so important for people to understand how a movement should feel and not just how it looks. So while we're given the kind of cues of how this needs to look, we also mention that, and we also really encourage people. So with our main self-led programs, we always have this emphasis on film yourself doing the movements, so you can actually see what you look like, because that teaches people so much better. Like even when you're coaching someone in person, if someone's just not getting it, yourselves that, some people for like getting the hinging pattern, it's like, you can say, right, okay, just try and get your bum to touch the wall. And they're like, no, that didn't work. And it's like, right, okay, slide your hands down your legs. No, right, okay, that didn't work. Imagine you're trying to sit down in a chair that's slightly too far away from you. And then the more you say, the more contorted they get, and you just make it worse. And you're just this awful implement now that just shouldn't even be there anymore. Whereas if you can just whip out your phone and be like, hey, look, you look like this. I need you to look like this. And it just almost works. 9 out of 10 times you're going to get pretty lucky, and you're going to be like, oh, I see what you mean now, or if any of you guys have ever had that, there another coach comes in and says the exact same thing that you did, but they picked them up. And it's like, what? What happened there?
I've nearly left the industry so many times because of that.
Yeah.
Like, why?
It's like you've been talking to someone for years, saying the message,
and
then someone will come in and go, "Oh, what's the program on TV yesterday? They said this," and you say, "Yeah, I've been telling you that for 2 years."
The amount of people I've got who say, like, after a couple of years, and then they'll say, "Oh yeah, you said that in the first ever session, didn't you?" And I'm like, "Yep." Now you get it. But I love that you use the hinge pattern there, because we're trying to get people to hinge. People are like, "Oh, that doesn't feel natural," and it's like, it's a natural human movement. Of course,
it's supposed to be, but it doesn't feel natural if you've never been told you have to do it, and if you never started training when you were like 6. If you weren't
Yeah.
lifted out at 6 years old and made to do gymnastics and then made to do weightlifting whenever you hit 12 or whatever, you're not going to have that level of body awareness. And then you've got the flip side of everybody interprets things, differently as well. So if you tell someone to keep their lower back tight, then, they might take that as like overextending. So then they set up overextended and their back looks okay. It looks flat. And then they stand up and then like 12 weeks later, my back hurts. And it's because every deadlift you've done, you've thought keep your back tight when it should be more inter-abdominal pressure. Whenever everything's activated, it's not just the lower back. That's the tight thing, preventing the movement or preventing being pulled out of position. So everybody interprets things differently as well. And I just think over the years, I've just personally, just through teaching so many people, it's just became a bit of a, it's just like crafting yourself and just knowing what to say is probably the one you're going to get luckiest with most. So there is a bit of that. What I found is the more I practice, the luckier I get.
I like that you said you touch where it is, because I had a guy, a new guy the other week, and he said his quad was sore and he pointed to his hamstring. So I was like, that's your hamstring, not your quad. So if you're saying hamstring and he wouldn't understand that, so at least you touch it. And then the likelihood is that the person's going to touch themselves there on, and then that gives you that proprioception back, I suppose, because you can say to someone, tense that muscle without touching it. They'd be like, how do I do that? But if you touch it, all of a sudden central nervous system's like, I know that's there.
Yeah. Does that feel like a strong rubber band to you? It's like,
yeah.
No, it feels like a soft steak.
You'll make me hungry.
I don't know if you know, Tom, do you know Mark Fisher at all from Mark Fisher Fitness in New York? Have you come across him at all? Because he trains, we actually haven't had him on yet, but I've met him a number of times. He's, again, this idea of tribe and talking to your tribe and using the language and the presentation that they like. He's in New York, and he has a lot of kind of Broadway performers and a lot of kind of very sort of, I suppose, eccentric people. And he also has a lot of kind of gay members and a lot of very sexual kind of things going on in his gym. And he kind of calls, well, I shouldn't say that. he does, he has a lot of kind of, sexualization of things and stuff, but it all very funny and good humored. And the anterior posterior tilt, the cueing he uses, I remember, and it means, I wouldn't use it in my gym for like people in their 50s, 60s and 70s, but he says either go like porn star or go old man saggy butt, so you kind of go, either the kind of one way or the other. So I don't know if that might help you, Paul. I don't know. You might get away with that in your place.
That's one thing. I'll see if that works on my client.
One of our SMM members for the posterior tilt said, put your hoo-ha in your belly button. I thought that was great.
The thing is, if you did that in James's gym, he's going to have to invest in a defibrillator, isn't he?
Do me. No, they're not. My members aren't all prudes. I'm just saying it's
like Handmaid's Tale in your gym, isn't it?
There's a guy who used to come along to me who I'll not say what he said, but it was something about the hip thrust. And anyway, I'll not say what it was. If you want to know, ask me online or something and I'll let you know. But it was he said basically if you were given 30 minutes with like somebody.
No.
You're not gonna half-arse it, so to speak. But anyway, there you
go. Tom, with the SMM method, has that kind of reached sort of peak evolution, if you like? Is that is a complete system that is now finished and has no doesn't need to evolve anymore? That is something that is finished.
Oh no, we're releasing it this month.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, there's an updated version. So there's been one new exercise added into it because it's from the group. Like I say, I have this massive pool of people that are doing the same thing again and again and again and again. And anytime that something keeps coming up that I have to keep recommending, I'm like, right, okay, that makes the SMM list now. So there's a lot of other things that I'll use, yeah, for sure. But the SMM is essentially look, don't miss this. You just do not miss this stuff. It's too important to miss this. There's other stuff you can do too, but it's not as important until you've nailed this stuff. So that's what SMM needs to be. To me, it needs to be that thing that's like, your absolute foundation. So there can't be any waffle in it. If I could very easily split it out into a 12-week program and have different exercises based off the same principles. And you've got to do a new thing every day and all this stuff and charge, £500 for it or whatever. But it's like, that's not what it needs to be. that's not accessible anymore. So it needs to be a low price product that someone, because you know yourself, if someone's new to starting fitness and they're like, hey, how much is your gym membership? And it's like, well, it's £60 a month or £100 a month. They're like, oh, that's so expensive. The gym down the road's only £10. And it's like, yes, there's a reason for that. You don't get coaching, you don't get blah, blah, blah. So, you can't, we do want to help people at the end of the day. So you can't price them out or make it feel too complicated that they won't be able to do it as well. So SMM needs to stay at that beginner level and stuff. And we have our level 2 and level 3 programs as well, and things that people move on to as well. But it needs to, what I want it to be, it has to be that start for anyone to be able to fix themselves and know how to manage themselves better.
So how long does it would it typically take? Like, is it a daily program? Is it every couple of days, a few times a week? Just for sort of like anyone who's listening who might be interested in it, is it like, does it take 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour? Because that's a big thing for people, isn't it? Like when they're buying something, they're like, well, if it's going to take all day, because there's so many things that you hear of, just do this one thing and everything will be sorted, and do it every day. But there's about 101 things that you have to do that would take you 25 hours a day. So, is it like, how accessible is it for people then?
SMM, the first part of it, whenever you first start it, you have to do tests, first of all, just to know where you're at and to know what you're tracking. So that's going to be your longest session. So it's going to maybe take you about, you can do the test by themselves one day, and then just the next day you'll start the exercises. Or if you've been training for a while and you've more energy and stuff, you could do the test and the exercises and then do a retest on the first day to see if you get any quick wins, which is very, very common. There's so many people I'll meet that like haven't touched their toes for 20 years. And it's like, hey, have you tried doing this couple of stretches? And then they're like, hey, I'm touching my toes. It's a nice uplift. You're like, hey, hang on, this works. You almost get this confidence in it straight away. But if you're brand new, you do the test first, and then you mark down where you're at with everything, and you don't get disheartened. It's just so you know where you're at. And then you do the exercises the next day, and you do them to the level that you need. So we have regressions for the exercises and then the main versions that you work up to eventually. So an SMM session will take you 40 minutes to do, and you use the regressions if you need, or whichever ones you need. And because everyone's going to struggle with different parts of it. So that's in there lies the tailoring. So some people won't struggle with some of the balance exercises, but they'll hate the flexibility ones. Or like me, you would hate the flexibility ones, but be like, with the balance ones, you're like, it's fine, it's easy. So that everyone's going to find their weaknesses essentially through running through it. And you aim for 4 times a week. And if you can do 4 times a week, that's great. I like 4 times a week if you're practicing anything, because it's more of the majority of your week then, rather than 3 days a week. I like the 4 because then it's more of your week. So 4 times a week, you aim for that. If you need to just do 2 days a week, it's absolutely fine. The frequency that you're going to be doing the exercises and just them being in your head, and it's like, why can't I do that yet? Why can't I do that yet? Sometimes you'll just find through being familiar with the exercise, you almost get like instant strength gains. You said, like, whenever someone first starts and they lift a barbell and they're like, whoa, it's heavy. And then like 2 weeks later, they're like, hey, it feels so much lighter now. And it's not because they've gotten any stronger. It's just because they're used to a barbell now. It's that same kind of thing. So they know what they're looking to work towards. So 4 times a week, and we usually say for 8 weeks. So for a lot of, like, if you're talking like joint changes and stuff, you're really thinking like 2 months of consistent progress to really make a big noticeable difference. So we'll have an 8-week retest then. And then from there, if you can do all the exercises as close to Jenny's demos as possible, great. You can stick with it once a week or twice a week if you need to. Use the movements in your warm-ups, absolutely fine. Or if you're still like having to use some of the regressions or whatever, try and keep that 4 times a week. And that's all you need to do. And it's like 40 minutes, 4 times a week. That's accessible. It's something that you can stick to.
And I think it's also it's no equipment. It's
no equipment.
So there's really, and you can do it in your, you can do it in your garden or in your lounge or whatever. It doesn't require loads of room, does it? So it's really accessible from that point of view as well. Yeah.
Because even for me, like I'm such the person that was like, if I had to go and grab a yoga mat, I wouldn't do it. I'd just be like, nah, can't be bothered.
I'm exactly like that with resistance bands, because the snap and everything, and then I'm like, I've got to get some other ones now, and so. But what I find interesting about this is that a lot of people look at it and go, so 40 minutes a day, 4 times a week, and I've got to do that for the rest of my life. But like you said, after 2 months, you get quite a lot of progress, don't you? And then actually, it's just like, whenever this feels a bit tight, I know what to do about it, and then it goes away quite quickly after that.
Yeah.
And that's where, because I mean, I'm going to shock everyone now, but I do very little mobility these days because I don't sit down all day, and in my program, that gets provided by my coach, Paul, there's pistol squats in there. So my ankle mobility, my hip mobility, my knees are fine, all of that. Then, there's pull-ups and presses and things like that. So actually all of the mobility is there. And Dave Keown was talking about this when he came on, and he's got into stone lifting and he's put on 20 kilos. He's got much bigger, but he can still do all of the mobility stuff that he's ever been able to do, because he did it all before he started to put mass on.
And he still does his mobility, doesn't he, in the kitchen?
Yeah.
Every day you see him, he puts it up. Yeah, so he's still doing it.
But he doesn't do it he doesn't do it for hours and hours and hours, does he? He just does what he does what he feels like on the day by the looks of it. So being able to get that point across to people of it's going to take a decent amount of time in the especially if you're a beginner and doing nothing, it's infinitely more time, isn't it?
Yeah, but we have that option that you can reduce the reps if you need to as well.
Yeah.
It's all in the ebook that if you need to only do 5 reps of everything, that's absolutely fine. You do it at your own pace. And then, so for the likes of me, because I've been doing it for so many years now, if I run through SMM, it's a totally different type of SMM to what any of you guys would do if you're first seeing it. I can do it in 15 minutes, because I'll go into each position and be like, that feels fine today. That feels fine today. That feels fine today. That's okay. I'll use the rest of these as a warm up. And that's the big thing as well. Some people are like, it feels like a bit of a workout. And it's like, well, yeah, do you want to feel stronger without doing any strength work? It doesn't make any sense. You actually need to use exercises that challenge your strength and stability to actually feel strong and not feel tight as well.
Yeah. No, that's good, because I do that with a lot of stuff. I'll just be like, I'll just check in on my hips. I'll check in on my shoulders. I do it periodically. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it'll be like, right, there's a bit of tightness there, and I can feel that behind my knee now. And if I carry on with this, that's going to cause a problem. So then I can address it quite quickly. So yeah, I like that.
I think with most things, isn't it? It's like to build strength, to maintain strength is a lot less of a commitment than to build strength, and to maintain a level of fitness is less commitment than to actually attain it, So I think, like you say, you front load. There's a lot of work to begin with, just like anything, isn't it? Just like anything in life, you put a lot of work in to begin with, and then you reap the rewards, and it takes less time to, like with your garden or something, if you've got to renovate your garden, it takes a full on thing. But then once it just comes to maintaining it and cutting your grass and, doing your plants and watering and whatever, you just kind of keeping it ticking over, aren't you, really? Once you put in that initial commitment, which is great.
I think familiarity is the key to any successful kind of progress, because there's so many disciplines in the world. I always think, what it must be like someone who's I'm of a generation that's never been to war, being under pressure and being able to keep your cool and things like that. Is familiarity of the environment breeds a kind of confidence and a lack of anxieties. And, when we're going into it, into work, I sit down with really, really successful people. They've built careers, they've got families, they've got social lives, all of which they've curated, and they have a lack of it. I've sat down with surgeons who are obviously under pressure to change people's lives and have a lot of, responsibility, and they can deal with that anxiety because they've really rehearsed in it. But they don't have that same rehearsal in terms of their well-being. So they're anxious when they go out to eat because they don't know what to eat. They're anxious when they're training because they don't know what to do and they don't trust their body. So I think it's that familiarity. The nervous system works in the same way. If you're accessing it, it gives confidence. And with the confidence, you'll take away the physical anxiety, the fear, because your brain will only give you one kind of feedback, which is probably pleasure or pain, isn't it? Really is the kind of way of communicating. So it makes sense to be doing it regularly to take away that physical anxiety.
That's an interesting way of putting it, though. I think everyone went quiet there, so I thought
the gravitas of my statement.
No, but for a surgeon, it's like I don't know what to eat, but I can happily slice someone open and not give it.
I trained a surgeon, a heart surgeon. He lost 9 kilos in the first month when we changed his diet, and he was doing a 9-hour surgery without breaks, and he'd fueled up on Iron Brew, a cheese sandwich, and a packet of Monster Munch. And that was how he got himself ready for it. He's evident. He was a consultant physician. He was extremely successful. His wife was a heart surgeon as well. But he was dealing with the consequences of people probably eating that exact meal. But yeah. But anyway.
Anyway, so Tom, we spoke about it. If people are, interested in finding out more about you and signing up, well, first of all, probably finding out more about you and then making the decision or the commitment to sign up and give the SMM program a go. What's the best way?
Oh, just say something sore near any device. I'll find you.
Say your name 3 times.
Yeah,
and then the ads will just start popping up. Just like
you'll be in the tracking.
anyone who listens to this, they'll have been like, oh, Tom Morrison, and then all of a sudden it's like, because it's the old thing of people think their phones are listening and don't they? So all of a sudden an ad will pop up and they'll be like, oh, he's everywhere. He's absolutely everywhere. What I did love was it was a couple of weeks ago. I think it was when you put a post up saying, I was in the car, in the passenger seat, obviously, looking at my phone, and you put a post up saying, oh, I'm delayed in the airport for 3 hours or something like that. Does anyone want any questions? And I'd seen that the post had been up for about 11 minutes, and you had millions of questions under there, and they were just like, yeah, watch this video, watch this. You've got so much content. Like, watch this YouTube video, that'll help. Oh, my shoulder's sore and I can't do this. Well, look at this Facebook post I did. Look at this blog post I did. So you've got this mine of information from everywhere, which is amazing. So yeah, I love that. Yeah, so obviously, if people want to find stuff about SMM, it's there, isn't it? So
yeah, you just search Tom Morrison, and then a good life hack for YouTube is if you have elbow pain, just say Tom Morrison elbow, and you'll get a few videos on it. So basically, anything you've ever heard, I've heard it 3 times first, and then I've probably worked with about 1,000 people that have heard it too. So it's never a task for us to think of content ideas. We always have things, and a lot of the stuff that we use is a lot of the same stuff, and we're just having to change the title of the video to say it's about piriformis syndrome instead of sciatica. But the same movements help those things, because improving how your hip moves is going to help both of those things. So it's really like, you'll see some of the videos will have different titles, but we'll be using the same movements in them, and it's because those movements work. And it's like, why would you use something that's not as effective just for the sake of it, So yeah, we keep it very simple as much as we can, but a lot of the stuff that we create is to try and meet you where you're at with the beliefs that you have, because otherwise you're not going to care. You're just going to gloss over it or not think the video's for you. So it has to be, the language that you use.
It's funny because there's so much stuff. When I got into fitness, I'll say the fitness industry, but when I got into it, it was about 10 years ago. And the amount of people who were like, do you do this type of squat? Do you do that? And there was all these different names. And I was like, oh, I've got to learn all these things. And they're all the same bloody stuff. Mm-hmm. I was just like, so what you've just said there is amazing, because it's how different people look at it. But like you say, within SMM, there's 15 movements, I think you said, isn't it?
If you look at hips, it's like, well, right, what can hips do? Right? They can flex, they can extend, they can abduct, they can adduct, they can internally rotate, and they can externally rotate. If you want to get extra, you can go for circumduction as well. It's just when you draw circles, but we don't really count that one. So there's 6 things. There's 6 exercises you could pick then, and that will make sure you've done all of the movements your hips can do. You're not going to miss any muscles, because the 3 muscles or whatever, everything that's linked is going to be the action that makes the hip move that way. So that's how you make a program that makes sure it has everything in it. You make sure you're doing all the directions of the joint. You think about the joints, not the individual muscles. If you start going, oh, it's glute med or whatever like that there, the famous ones that everybody blames, it's like you've lost. You've lost. You've maybe got you maybe got 3 weak areas you need to work on, and you've just picked one muscle, and maybe it's just because your balance sucks. There's so many things that are so simple to work on, and for a lot of people it's a lot easier than they think it is. It really is.
It's interesting. Balance is a huge one as well, because we obviously spend most of our time on one leg, and a lot of people will be in pain and then go, oh, I need to lose weight or whatever, I'm going to go running. So then they spend even more of the time jumping from one leg to the other. And I had a guy, he's 60, he started, he's done a lot of running, a lot of rowing, he's very fit, couldn't stand on one leg, he couldn't stabilize on one leg at all. And he'd hold his breath, he'd breathe in, hold his breath, and before he even picked his foot off the floor. And all we did was just we didn't really do much one-legged work. We just did some stability stuff and got him to be able to kind of brace his core without holding his breath, without not creating the pressure cylinder, but just just being able to breathe through, but for his core to work reflexively. That's what I'm looking for. And that was a few months ago. Within like 2 months, he's standing on one leg, doing the cross crawls from the original strength stuff, and he was like, it was getting really frustrated about it, and it just opened up a whole new world for him. It's amazing. Just that one tiny little thing. So yeah, I love it.
What's that? Just quickly say, because you just mentioned original strength there. I was just going to say, there's so many sort of mobility programs out there, like in terms of, I suppose like original strength. We recently hosted at my gym, flexible steel. We've had ground force method. There's animal flow. There's all this stuff. But I think that the one thing that most of those seem to be aimed at trainers, aimed at teaching trainers how to teach. Whereas I think the thing that's like I say, which I think is fantastic and brilliant, is that yours is actually, you're aiming at just the everyday normal person and educating them and teaching them to do it themselves, which so I while we've been speaking, I've kind of been trying to think, and I've done all the kind of the FMS, functional movement systems, Gray Cook stuff and things, but I think that that accessibility and that, like you say, you don't need any equipment, you don't need to go to a gym, you just need to watch this, you need to put your foot up and have a bit of a wiggle and follow this program. I think that's what's so different, which I think is brilliant, which we do have trainers who listen to the podcast, obviously, but most of the people who listen to the podcast are everyday people. So hopefully this will really talk to them, which I think is brilliant. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Excellent. That's great. I've just thought, actually, I might slip into your comments and be one of those guys, because you just do this, you put your foot on the step and all of that. And I live in a basement flat, so I haven't got stairs.
Use your kitchen tray then.
So you're wrong.
Yeah.
How dare you discriminate against people who haven't got stairs? I mean,
but that's the thing, is about bringing it back to normal people. Normal people don't think like coaches at all. Whenever we demonstrate something that would be on like a squat rack rig post or whatever, we're like, well, I don't have a pole in my house. And, it seems so obvious to us. It's like, well, just use your kitchen counter then, or your banister, or your fireplace. It's absolutely fine. But no, people don't think like that. We're not, normal people don't try and figure those things out. It's like, well, I don't have that. I can't do that. So it's so important to keep that in the way that you're teaching, I think.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Excellent. Right. So, where can people find you? You're obviously on Facebook. Are you on Instagram? I don't even know if I don't follow you on Instagram, so I'll have to do that as well, as if I don't see enough of you on my phone. But so where's the best place for people to find you?
Everywhere.
Pretty much everywhere. If you search Tom Morrison, we'll pop up on any platform. So Instagram's Tom Morrison Training, but Facebook's Tom Morrison, TikTok's Tom Morrison, YouTube's Tom Morrison. It's all just Tom Morrison, pretty much.
Do you know what? I love that as well, because it's not like, not being funny, but it's not like your name is an unusual name. Tom Morrison, there must be so many of them in the world, but if you look for it, you find you. That is, I love that. That is fantastic.
And there's a politician that's called Tom Morrison, and he got the blue tick because he's a politician, which was annoying, so I can't get the blue tick.
Oh, can you only get it once for what? Oh, right, okay, for one name. I never.
Well, the way it was before, I don't know if they're changing it or whatever, but no, that's why we don't have a blue tick, unfortunately.
Oh dear. Excellent, but no, that's great. So yeah, everyone, just look up Tom. You don't even need to Google it. You just need to say it, and it'll be on your phone. So any last thoughts, James?
No, just that I think I might have a little chat with Tom, or message Tom about maybe doing a workshop. If he's going to come over to England, and we'll sort something out, because I'd love it, and I know a lot of my members would absolutely love it, and a lot of people in the southeast, obviously. So I'll have a little chat with Tom, or ping him a message about that. But no, it's been really, really good, really enjoyable. And like I say, we spoke about this kind of thing before, but not from, and it's the simplistic, the mobility method, it is from this user friendly end, which I think is brilliant. No, so really, really good. Excellent.
Awesome. Yeah, up for that.
Tom Morrison, he's user friendly. You should. There's a
use me.
I was going to say, like Apple, isn't it? Is it like intuitive? This kind of simple, intuitive kind of stuff, which is what people need, isn't it? And it's demystifying and making it as simple as possible. Because if it's not simple, people won't do it, will they? So no, I think it's brilliant. Yeah, cool.
Excellent. What about you, Paul?
Yeah, I think just parrot what James said. If it's not simple, people won't do it. How many of my clients get this huge list of things they need to do that they dump on top of their already huge list of things to do? So the simpler you can make it, the higher adherence, and that's the starting point. It's amazing what can happen when you just get people to do simple things repetitively with great intention. And if you can make it fun along the way, then that's fantastic. So thanks for taking the time out, Tom. It's really fascinating talking to you.
No problem at all. Thanks very much for having me. It's great fun.
Excellent. Right. Well, you know where to find Tom. Just say his name. And if you like this episode, this podcast, and everything about it, you can find us on Facebook in the Facebook group. You'll find us where you're listening to it, won't you? Because James usually does this bit, and I forget.
If you don't like it, just find Peter Lant and just troll and just slag him off online.
Yeah, it's all right. I'm used to it now, you know. But there you go. But no, thanks for listening. Tell your friends, and we'll see you on the next one. Ta-ra.